Hello, and welcome to July's episode of Let's Talk Oregon. I'm your host, Mike Doucette. We've got a great show for you today. In our first segment, we'll be talking with Village Administrator Martin Shanks about the upcoming budgetary process for the Village of Oregon. And after the break, in our second segment, we'll be talking with the director of the Oregon Straw Hat Players production of Mamma Mia. It's an exciting show. We hope you stick around. All right, welcome, Martin. Welcome to the show. Glad you could take the time to speak with us today. Many people in the village might not actually be aware of what a village administrator is and what a village administrator does. Would you please kind of give us an idea of your job and how you operate within the Village of Oregon?
Sure. Yeah. So, of course, most people are familiar with our village board, our elected officials. They are elected by the people, the residents of the community. We have a 7-member board, 6 trustees, and 1 village president. And their role is very similar to, of course, at the federal level, we have the executive branch, which is the president. Mm-hmm. We have the legislative branch, which is the Congress. The village board is like both in one. Mm-hmm. So they operate at the policy level. They make decisions for the village. But what a lot of people don't realize is those individuals are often just part-time. They have jobs of their own. They have careers of their own. They may be retired. They don't necessarily have background in municipal government. And so for a lot of communities, they will hire an administrator, somebody who has the education and background in government administration. Mm-hmm. So my role is to report directly to the village board, give them advice, make recommendations, but really the core function of what I do is to oversee and supervise the day-to-day operations, so all of our village departments, and then make sure that the decisions that the village board is making are being carried out at the organizational level, and of course doing those efficiently, effectively, and accountably.
Right, and so you're a nonpartisan role, I was reading on the website, so you are just basically an employee of the village who helps guide the decisions and implements the processes for village policy. Great. So have you been in local governance for a long time? You obviously have been educated in this. What was your path to Oregon and what kind of experiences have led you here to our village?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for my entire adult life, my entire career, 15 years now. Before I came here, I was the administrator for the village of Poinet. It's a smaller community just north of Madison. I was there for about 4 years. Then I was the assistant administrator down in the city of Monroe for about 5 years. And before that, I was in school. I went to graduate school for my master's in public administration, had an emphasis in municipal management. Mm-hmm. Local government was always something I was really interested in growing up. Didn't know exactly what that meant, mm-hmm. or what kind of role or what job you could really have. But I went to UW-Stevens Point for my undergrad and majored in political science and public administration there, and had an advisor who set me up with an internship with the Village of Plover administrator. Mm-hmm. And I did basically kind of like a job shadow internship there for a semester. And every day is different. You get to do all the different things in the community and all the different functions. And so that was really interesting to me. And so I continued on in my journey, as I said, to grad school and to here today with Oregon for 3 years already.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like it's been a really wonderful experience and welcome you now to Oregon. We're glad to have you for sure. So part of your role as a village administrator is also to help develop and implement a budget for the village. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And I know that the budget has been a concern as of late. So what types of challenges are we as a village facing right now with our current budget constraints and concerns? Can you care to elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, a lot of the issues that we're facing from a budget standpoint are not unique to Oregon. Mm-hmm. One of the things that people often don't realize is state government dictates a lot of what local governments can do. So your cities, villages, and towns and counties all sort of work in the same framework that is handed down to us from the state. And so as a result of that framework and those laws, we end up dealing with a lot of the same issues to varying degrees. And the big ones that we're dealing with right now are, we're finding, as other communities are finding, our expenses for running the village, for running our services, mm-hmm. are outrunning the revenues that we have to pay for those expenses. Mm-hmm. And that's a result of a couple different things. One is there's a property tax levy limit law in the state of Wisconsin, which is the primary source of revenue that local governments have. It makes up about 70% of our revenue. Local governments aren't allowed to have income taxes or sales taxes, so this is really the one thing that we can rely on. And our growth in our property tax is limited to new construction value in the community in the prior year. So there's a factor and a formula that takes place that, on the other side of how much new value is constructed, spits out a percentage on how much we can increase our property taxes year to year. And an important distinction there too is, a lot of people have seen appreciation in their home values, quite a bit over the last few years in this community in Dane County, but we can't raise more dollars off of that appreciation of existing value.
Sure.
We can only raise more on new construction. So now Oregon, like other Dane County communities, has done well. We're a growing community. We have new construction occurring in our community. Right. But for us, that's generally more or less 5-10 years equated to maybe 1 to 3% increase in our property taxes. And so over certainly the last 3, 4, 5 years, when we've come out of the pandemic and we've seen inflation in 5%, 8%, 10%, it's come down a bit to 3, 4% now. But when your primary source of revenue is 1 to 3 a year, and staff salaries and supplies and things are increasing at 5, 8, 10%, things start to get away from us.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, of course, we're a growing community, so we're not standing still. So what it took to operate, say, a police department 15 years ago in a community the size of 7,000 people, we've grown 30% since then. Now we're a community of 12,000. So the primary source of our revenue is 1 to 3% a year. Plus, we're growing. So not only are we not keeping up with what we had it previously, but we're adding things on top of that. Of course, we add 4,000 people. You're going to get more police calls. You're going to get more EMS calls. All sorts of things. So, and lastly, the third thing is about 20% of our revenue is made up of shared revenue that we get from the state. Grants of funds that the state provides to all local governments. And since 2003 up to 2023, we have seen a reduction of about $200,000 a year in that funding source. So we were making about $400,000 from the state in 2003. By 2023, it was around $200,000. Now, last year, the state legislature changed the law, and we got some of that back. We got $300,000 from that law change that occurred. So we got back what we sort of lost over those 20 years, plus a little bit more. But there really doesn't appear to be any movement beyond what was provided. So all those things taken together.
It sounds like quite a mix of different factors that have kind of created a situation. It's positive the village is growing. Obviously, it's a positive, but it's not necessarily at a rate that is going to be increasing those coffers enough for what we might need for the anticipated growth for the. And I think it's good to know for village residents out there. I think a lot of people say, well, our property taxes are already high. They're already high, right? But I think very few people out there probably actually know the complex formula that is being made up here of the mixture of state funding plus, like you said, the real estate the property taxes being increased only on new construction. And there is plenty of that and going up, but it seems that's a perfect storm of different elements that have kind of created the situation. So I've heard some ideas being thrown around about a potential referendum on the ballot in April of 2025, right? So as a village board, as they consider this kind of referendum, what do you see that referendum shaping up to be like? What kind of priorities are going to be highlighted in pursuing that? And what can people kind of expect to be hearing about in the coming months before we really kind of launch that initiative?
Yeah. So one thing that we can do to exceed that limit I talked about was go to a referendum, have the residents vote to increase it. And so the village board has talked over the last 4 or 5 months that this is something that needs to get a priority because they see all the things that we've been talking about here and try to get a handle on that. So we're going to go through a process here towards the end of the year and probably the most important part of that is going to be a community survey. So we're going to send a survey in the fall to every residential address in Oregon, trying to get a sense of what are people's priorities. Is it public safety? Is it public works? Is it parks, library? And what would a resident, any given resident, accept as a possible increase to taxes to support those priorities? Because obviously if our expenses are outrunning our revenues, something's got to give at some point. And so getting a sense of how people feel about what's important and maybe what's less important can help dictate where we need to guide this possible referendum. And so hopefully we'll get some good feedback, and in early January the board will have a decision to make on whether to move forward or not with a referendum for April. And if they do, hopefully they'll have some good feedback to be able to craft a question around what people find important and what people would be able to accept from a potential tax increase.
So it sounds like some good work is going to be put in. There's going to be a lot of input. Obviously, if people are interested in following along with this information, they can pay attention to the village board meeting minutes. The village, obviously, OCA films those village board meetings as well. I think attendance is always encouraged and welcome as well. But it sounds like residents can expect the survey to come into their mailboxes before too long. And also, obviously, it's not a done deal, right? There would have to be an official vote for the village board to move towards that referendum as well. So you've kind of talked about this a little bit already, but as this village continues to grow and develop, how have our needs shifted over the past 10 to 15 years? How is our village different now than it was 15 years ago?
Yeah. I think, as I mentioned, I came to the community 3 years ago, and from what I've learned from people and talking from people is probably around that time, like 10 years ago, I think people started to recognize that, what maybe was a bedroom community of Oregon has now grown, to 10,000, 12,000 people today. And so I think back, probably about 10, 15 years ago, there was a recognition that we need to do some investing in some of our public infrastructure and some of our public facilities to accommodate this community that we have now. And so that's why you've seen, some of these huge building projects that we've been doing. The new library, the move of the village hall. We're talking about a new senior center here over the next couple of years. We've done some pretty large street projects. We're talking about some huge water and sewer utility projects as well on the docket. So I think we're sort of in a 10-year window right now where there's this huge initiative to invest in these generational projects to accommodate what Oregon has become and where it's going. And I think, the conversation moving forward will shift a little bit more to, some of this operating stuff, which is, I think we're going to be in this cycle where we probably are going to have to keep going to referendum, all else being equal at the state, periodically, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, we're probably going to have to keep going back. Which is, school districts have been kind of in that cycle for decades now. So I think the conversations, moving forward for this community will be, what are important services that the village provides? Maybe what's less important. Maybe we don't do that anymore, or maybe we do less of it, or we need to invest in the things that we care about. So those are going to be big conversations to have. And I think, from an economic standpoint too, as I mentioned, I think, Oregon was definitely a bedroom community, very focused on traditional single-family housing developments, and I think that's shifted a little bit. And we've certainly done a lot more in different housing types and multifamily, and, affordable housing, and so I think that will continue. I think we hear a lot of feedback on those larger lot single-family homes are not as wanted or needed, even from an environmental standpoint. I think there will always be a place for that, and we certainly have a lot of lots available, but I think development will start to shift to a little bit more denser and efficient, and that ties back into service delivery and all that stuff too. So.
It's a very complex picture that you're painting here, but I think it's one that's a good discussion for the village to continue. And obviously, there's going to be community input, obviously, anything that moves forward. So I think we're in good hands, and I think these are good problems to have for the Village of Oregon, and as we continue to grow and become a more vibrant place, I think it's going to benefit us all in the long run. So thanks for your time today, Martin, and thanks for coming to the show. When we come back after the break, we'll be sitting down and talking about OHSP SHP's next production of Mamma Mia. We'll see you.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches? Ready? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes. Look at that. You didn't even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you got to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Hello, welcome back from the break. I'm excited to be sitting down with Querida Funck, who is the director of Mamma Mia, which is this summer's Oregon Straw Hat Players production, premiering here in our very own Oregon Performing Arts Center. So welcome to the show, Querida. It's really nice to see you and to sit down and talk with one of the things I love the most, which is obviously theater.
Theater.
Been very passionate about that myself. So we know that Straw Hat Players, again, is busy preparing a summer musical. Tell us about this year's show and kind of why did you all center on doing some ABBA this year with Mamma Mia?
Yeah, well, we're celebrating our 42nd year in the community with our first jukebox musical. Mamma Mia is a fun, happy, comedic presentation of a musical that can appeal to all ages in the cast and ages in the audience as well. And we like that idea.
Yeah. I know it's one of my girls' favorite shows. They like to listen to the soundtrack quite a bit when we're in the
Dance
car together.
to it.
Oh, yeah. So I definitely can agree that it's an all ages kind of family fun kind of show for sure. So within this production and the Straw Hat Players in general, what is your position? So you're directing this show, but obviously within the organization, you wear many hats as well. Is that correct?
I do. I am currently on the board of directors, and I am celebrating my 25th show by directing this one. And I've been with the group for 34 years, so I've been able to do lots of different things. I love to costume design, but I've directed before, I've written plays before, done just about everything except lights and sound.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in this position as director, tell us about your approach to the show. What are your goals? What are you trying to communicate through this well-known jukebox musical? How will Oregon's version be different from maybe what people have seen before?
Well, I'm really drawn to the story that's in here. I mean, normally with jukebox musicals, that's the challenge of creating them, is you have all the music and then you wind the story around the music. And this was done the opposite way. They knew they wanted to do ABBA music, and they decided to break it out into themes and then write a story on the themes, then stick the music in. So it flows really, really well. And there's a great character arc in this story for the two main leads, for Sophie and Donna. And so I'm intrigued by that and working with the actors on all the emotions that play into those arcs and giving a good dramatic play inside the musical.
Right, and so for those that might not be familiar, would you kind of give a quick synopsis of the show and what, if no one's ever seen, obviously, the movie version of Mamma Mia, what can they expect to come see? What is the story that you're referencing?
The story takes place on a small Greek island, and it's about Sophie, who's going to be getting married, and she finds her mother's diary and invites 3 men from her mom's past because she's hoping to discover who her dad is. But she doesn't tell her mom she's invited them. So everyone shows up for the wedding and chaos ensues. And a lot of emotion and a lot of memories. And the fun thing with this presentation is that we're seeing the real Donna and the Dynamos. We're seeing women that are age appropriate for the roles, that have lived independent lives, that have been through struggles. And that path is reflected in the younger actors playing Sophie, Allie, and Lisa. So you kind of get to see Donna and the Dynamos in now and Donna and the Dynamos when they were 20 by looking at their kids. And so it's a real fun presentation to have that parallel.
So when audiences sit down, they can be expected to be taken to an exotic locale on the Greek islands. And I saw the set today. I was snooping around, and we've got a couple of different buildings. It's quite a big set. Do you want to explain any specific design elements that you're trying to accomplish here?
When I sat down with the builders and we wanted to design it, we'd all read through the script several times, and we had started stacking inspiration folders with just images of things we liked. And we then, as a group, sat down and went, oh, I like this, I like this. Oh, here's the common ones we like. And I talked to them about how I wanted to block and what I wanted to do, and some things that the script kind of prompted, like having 2 buildings instead of 1. And that comes directly from the script. So we then kind of hit a roadblock, and I'm like, okay, forget what we can do. What do we want to do? Let's design the dream set for this. And so we drew that out, and then backed into it with, is this possible? You know, double check all the measurements, double check the lights and that they're hitting in the right places, adjust height if we need to, adjust size if we need to, and work down to what's practical and what we can actually accomplish.
Right, and then I think to also save some room and make some more room on stage, you are going to have the musicians on stage as well, which is a different approach than many of the musicals we've seen before. It is
a different approach, and we decided to do that to honor this being a jukebox musical because it's based on band music. So the music director, Lucas Finley, asked, can we put the band on stage? And I'm like, absolutely. So we not only have a band of 4 keyboards, 2 guitars, a bass, drummer, and 4 backup singers, like a real band, on stage, visible the whole time. But then we've got the story playing out in front of them.
That's going to be a fun approach to see for sure. As you talk about the cast, are there some old faces that we'll recognize from your productions and some new faces as well? Or
there's a blend of both. We actually have a 50-50 split in the cast of people that are doing their first production with OSHP and people that are returning and coming back and doing programs with us. So it's a nice blend. Everybody's getting along great, and it's a fun time to get to know each other, and we're glad to welcome new talent to the group.
And the rehearsals process obviously is not an easy process. You've been rehearsing for how long now?
We are in our 5th week of rehearsal, and it's an 8-week process to put on the musical. So conflicts are the biggest obstacle anytime you do a production because people have lives and it just happens. So you rearrange things as need be and do it, but it's working out.
Yeah, I would imagine that specifically during the summer slots, you run into that quite a bit too. As people's summer schedules get set pretty early, right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of traditions and vacations and things that often are not conducive with musical theater, and the need to be on stage and be rehearsing. I can speak from experience on that. So are there any other specific challenges you're facing with this production?
I would say that something that's new for us that can be challenging is the music, because everyone knows ABBA, everyone likes ABBA, and you think it's simple and easy. But this is actually very complex music. We have that band setting, and we're running over 300 keyboard patches in through computers while we're playing to get all of the sound effects. And some of the backup vocals are so tight in harmony that they're actually creating electronic instrument sound in some cases. And those backup singers, there's 4 of them, they have to memorize the entire show because not only are they providing that backup singer band sound, but they're also on stage in certain scenes. So kudos to them. They have to sing the whole time.
Yeah, that's challenging for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of vocal strength to have that occur along the process and from the finish line as well.
Yeah.
Did I hear something specific about maybe a water feature you're going to try to have on stage, or has that gone to the wayside at this point?
No, we have it built. In designing the set, I wanted to put a courtyard fountain in the scene. And I was like, gosh, how am I going to do that? I don't want to pay money for one, and how am I going to do that? And then I went out to my garage and started going, there's a broken bird bath. That's a kiddie pool. We'll put that at the bottom, broken bird bath. Oh, there's a sled. We'll put that there. And just started stacking things until I had this general form. Contact cement and spray texture gray. We have a fountain back there.
Oh, nice.
And the top, it towers up to about 4.5 feet. The top has a bowl that insets into the top piece. That's where the water goes. And we have a remote controlled fountain that we can just turn on, and it funnels the water up like a real fountain does, and it doesn't ever hit the floor because we've got all these other layers that are bigger to catch anything.
Well, that sounds like that was a fun
And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun to
challenge
build.
to bring, and I don't think this is the first time I've seen water on stage.
But we don't want the water on the stage.
Right. Let's hope not. Right. Well, that's exciting. So, let's talk about kind of the nitty-gritty details here. So where can our viewers of this show find more information about it? When is it performing? What are the ticket prices looking like?
We perform August 3rd and 4th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. We have both matinee and evening shows on some of those dates. And tickets are available on our website at oshponline.org.
Okay. So hopefully we'll get that website up there for people to look at on the little ticker at the bottom. And it's always fun to talk musical theater. It's always fun to talk. And I know if you are a fan of ABBA at all, this musical is for you. Even if you're not a big fan of ABBA, the story itself is so much fun. And it's fun to see how the playwrights here made such an engaging and fun story that does really kind of fit with the ABBA music really pretty well.
Yeah, it does.
It's not just an excuse to sing ABBA, but the songs really do some.
They play in and continue the story
forward.
Yeah?
So it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be fun to see some new faces on stage, plus some of our tried and true individuals from the organization. And again, congratulations to you on your longtime involvement in the organization itself, and here's to celebrating 42 years with a fantastic show here at the Oregon Performing Arts Center. So,
Thank you.
Again, check out that website. Make sure you get your tickets, and let's see you at the theater late this summer here in August. So again, thank you very much, and that's all we have for Let's Talk Oregon. We'll see you next month.